Well, hello there, lovely podcast people, and welcome to this week's installment of your favorite horror movie review podcast, Dead and Lovely, here with your good buddies, Uncle Ben, and who's that man on the other end of that Skype call?
Hollywood Steve Spratling.
Oh, Hollywood Steve. How you been doing out there in them Hollywood Hills, Steve?
Oh boy, pretty good. I had a birthday recently, and for some reason the city of Los Angeles decided to have good weather for the past week, I guess as a gift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really nice.
That's good, man. I was just recently right near the beach. I just got back from a week beach vacation out in old sunny South Carolina. And I had myself a damn good old time. I think I figured out that basically in my life, my beach relaxation is proportional to my hard working that I do at home.
Okay.
Because, like, this is the laziest vacation I think I've ever fucking had. Like, I barely even walked.
Awesome. That's the only way to vacation. I don't understand people who go on vacation and have like an itinerary and shit that they like hard plans on a vacation. What the hell?
I know.
Isn't that like what you're vacationing from?
I know,
hard
dude.
plans?
That's totally my thing too. And it's like, I don't know. I have friends that, whenever they go to the beach, it's like they really do kind of make plans and stuff. It's like, oh, this day we're going to go parasailing, and this day we're going to go shopping, and this day we're doing this, and this day we're doing this. And I'm like, fuck all of that, dude. I literally just want to sit on the beach and fucking get drunk and listen to music and like read books. And that is basically all that I want to do.
Hang out with Spuds McKenzie.
Yeah, and the Hawaiian Tropics bikini team.
Oh yeah, those are the best. I mean, if you're gonna go on vacation, hang out with people from beer posters in the 80s.
Yeah, they seem like they have the best time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So at the beach, I did basically nothing other than I listened through like Led Zeppelin's entire discography, which was a great move.
Good call, yeah.
Short report on that. I think Physical Graffiti might be Led Zeppelin at the height of their powers.
Okay, yeah. That's an interesting choice, but I think I see what you're saying.
I also think that In Through the Outdoor is not very good.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with that.
So we had a good time, and the cool thing is on our vacation, usually what we do is we just sit on the beach all day, and then we go out to a nice dinner, and then a lot of times we'll go back to the condo and just like watch a movie or something like that as a family. But over the past couple of years, we've made the very smart move of bringing our Roku with us and hooking that into the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
like
good call.
Last year at the beach, we used our Roku to finish up watching Stranger Things in the wee night hours, which was a great move. And this year we used it and watched the newest episodes of Game of Thrones while we were at the beach.
Oh, awesome.
I don't want to like spoil the shit out of Game of Thrones.
Nah, let's not spoil it, but
I'm just gonna say that like this season has kicked so much ass, dude.
Yeah. A lot of people online are upset at the breakneck speed, but I think one, they don't have the time to draw it out anymore because they only have 13 episodes left. I mean, now they only have 7, I guess.
Yeah.
And we need resolution on the stuff we've been waiting for resolution on the entire time. So you're gonna get some speedy narrative. You're gonna get some seemingly people warping from place to place. You're gonna get that.
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. And I've seen the same thing. I've seen people complaining, "Oh man, it's just like it's going at the speed of any typical fucking Hollywood movie, blah blah blah." And I'm like, this is called conclusion. Like we have been watching this show for what is it? 7 years now? 6 years now?
7, yeah.
7 years now. It's drawing to a conclusion. Let shit happen already.
Yeah. And don't worry about where chains come from.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yes,
but hard home. They came from hard home.
Yeah.
Or the Giants.
There
or
you go.
Wherever. We've seen chains beyond the wall before. I'm not going to spoil why they have chains or who has them.
Man, last week's episode was just ridiculous. I'm really, really, really excited to see where it's going. And, it's like I'm very sad that the series, of course, is coming to an end next year, of course. But at the same time, it's like I'm so happy knowing that they are driving this car somewhere, because I really do feel like seasons 1 and 2, I thought were so focused and so driven and amazing.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, once it hit season 3, other than the Red Wedding, not really all that much stuff was happening. And then seasons 4 and 5, there was a whole lot of feet shuffling going on, where they were clearly just sort of waiting for Martin to release another book, and they weren't really sure where to take the characters. And I don't know. I thought there was a lot of time wasted in those seasons, so I'm really happy to see them picking up and moving it somewhere, and knowing that even though it is coming to a close, they are taking it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame the showrunners for the fact that George R. R. Martin hasn't released his books. I mean, HBO may have been more willing to give them 12 episodes for the last 2 seasons if they had the full-on material from George R. R. Martin. So, if you got a problem with the show, if you're like, oh, I love the books, not the show, the books ended. I mean, they're not going to come out before the end of the show. Yeah. So just enjoy the end of the show. Yeah. Have fun with it.
And then when the books come out, you'll get something different that's not what you're expecting.
Yeah, and it'll be great.
Yeah. So I'm totally okay with that. So other than Game of Thrones, what have you been watching lately that was good, Steve?
Oh man. Well, we full disclosure to listeners, we've been off, I guess, for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think, about 2 weeks we haven't recorded anything. So I've just, I watched, I've said before that I've never seen Saw. So my wife and I watched all of the Saw movies.
Oh my God, all of them?
All of them in a row. They're all on Hulu. So, let me tell you this, watch them in a row. That way you won't be disillusioned into believing that any one of them past the first one is really good.
See, I watched the first one for the first time maybe only a year or so ago.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's one of those ones it's kind of like watching Blair Witch Project, a decade too late, where it's just like, okay, you've really just missed the relevance point of it.
Right.
Because I watched the first Saw maybe a year or so ago, and I was just like, okay, this is whatever. It looks really cheap, and it was really cheaply made stuff.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't get into it very much, and I think I started the second one and fell asleep and never finished it. So are any of the other ones worth watching?
Honestly, no, but I would say that the first one is the best. I don't think they're horror movies. They're thrillers.
That's a better way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, they're closer to 7 than they are to a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
It gets tedious the more they go. There's a lot of focus on Jigsaw, and then the B story is the people in escaping all these traps, etc. Mm-hmm. And they don't really, in some of the sequels, they don't even really mesh together. They don't have anything to do with one another. So it's like you're watching 2 separate movies at the same time. I think the second one was actually, of the sequels, the second's the best.
Okay.
But they're just not good. They're really just not good.
Right on, man.
I also watched all of the Final Destination movies.
All of them? How many is that?
There are 5 of them.
You have truly been punishing yourself this week, Steve.
Well, you know what? Here's what it was. I really, how you sit down sometimes and it's like, what are we gonna watch? It's nice when you have a TV show or something you can just throw on that maybe, you don't have to pay all the attention to.
Right.
Well, Saw and the Final Destination movies are like that. You throw them on, you don't pay a ton of attention to them, you don't have to think about what movie you're gonna watch next because there's another sequel. But if you are paying attention, it's really, really annoying.
I think one of our fans on our Facebook group or somebody suggested that, I think he said Final Destination 5 was pretty good, right?
Yeah, and I would rank them in this order. I would go 3. I think 3 is the best.
Okay.
3 is the one where they don't waste a whole lot of time trying to explain why it's happening, which is where they get into, real sticky situation in the first one, where they keep trying to explain it, and by explaining it, it's making it happen. Mm-hmm. In the third one, they just sort of like trust that the audience gets it. They escape death. They're supposed to die now.
Yeah.
And it has Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I absolutely love, and is an amazing actress, and is really good in it. Like, she's genuinely good in the movie. 5 is good. It's not great. 5 is the most CG of all of them, which I didn't like, but the story is not overly complicated. 4's fine. 2 has the best opening sequence.
Somebody told me the opening sequence of 2 was sick.
It's insane. It will make you not want to drive a car for the rest of your life.
Wow.
It's really like frightening. And then 1 is the worst.
You told me that even going back on it, that could we revise our Final Destination episode? I think that you said that you would give it a 0.
Yeah. It's so bad. I hate it. I hate it so much. And you know what? Like 2 actually was it was like an improvement, except 2 was obviously written so fast that they focused on making that opening sequence really awesome, but then it was like they just recorded some of their production meetings and turned it into the script. Because there's a lot of times where it's like they're talking like, okay, now what's going on? All right, let's try to explain it. Well, maybe that works. I guess. I don't know. Like, there's like a whole lot of talk where it's like, obviously, this is what the producers were saying to one another, and somebody was like, just write that shit down and have them say it.
Maybe we bring Candyman into it. I don't know.
Tony Todd's awesome, but like, yeah, there's nothing in those movies worthwhile. Like, seriously though, you can just watch 3 and you get the whole series. You don't have to know anything that happened in the beginning. Like 3, you can just fall right into it. It's a quick, okay teen sort of like Scream movie, and it's fine.
Right on.
Good
I need
kills.
to watch them.
Eh.
Maybe I don't.
Don't run out to do it.
Just let them come to me, right?
Yeah. If I don't know, if like somebody is, I don't know, making you a meal and they're like, I'm gonna throw on Final Destination, don't yell at them. Just be like, oh, all right, whatever.
Well, Steve, it was recently revealed to my wife,
Your wife,
who is a listener of our program.
Yeah, she's the best.
She's the best listener of the program that we create here.
She's number 1. She's
I
up there.
think that it was maybe on either the Halloween episode or one of the other ones where I mentioned that I hadn't seen Tremors.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, because I remember I had watched Tremors around then.
And that is apparently like a movie that was one of my wife's like favorite flicks ever when she was a kid.
Yeah,
like she said that they rented it so many times that eventually like her mom just bought the tape just so they could quit renting it. So apparently she watched the fuck out of this when she was a kid, and I had never seen it before. So actually tonight, just a minute before we started recording, we just watched Tremors for me for the first time, for her for the millionth time.
What did you think of it?
I thought that's just a fun time. That is that is a quality, let's go to the video store and rent this kind of movie. I can't really think of any modern equivalent of it,
No, I can't either. Yeah, it's so weird because it's just fun. Like, it's fun. It's scary-ish. Not really. I mean, they're like some surprises. The Tremors themselves, the worms, they look cool.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. Fun time. Like, it's nice to just see people enjoying themselves in a horror movie.
Yeah, the special effects are cool. Again, all practical, obviously. So there's a lot of giant rubber puppets and stuff like that I really enjoyed. Reba McEntire, I think, looks older in that movie than she does now, which is strange. Reba might be Benjamin Button.
She could be Benjamin Buttoning us, yes. Yeah. But I think 90s fashion and 90s women's hairstyles made everyone look 15 years older than they were.
That's a good point. That's a very quality point. I think that you're right.
The moment you get a perm, you are 50. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are. You're 50.
I enjoyed it, though. I want to watch the other ones and see if they're any good. But that first one was just some good, clean movie fun. It was corny, but it wasn't completely silly. You know, it still took itself, like, a little bit seriously, but not too bad. So, yeah, I definitely enjoyed myself a trimmer. You know, another cool thing that I happened to see today was a total eclipse, not of the heart, but of the sun.
Total eclipse of the sun.
So usually whenever we record this, because this will be coming out sometime, I think in September, right?
Yeah.
We usually record this podcast a couple weeks in advance. So today was August, 21st? The day of the Great American Eclipse, where we had that complete solar eclipse, which was pretty rad, man. Did you get to see any of it from where you were at in sunny California?
Yeah, we had a partial eclipse. My wife and I went out, checked it out. We didn't buy the eclipse glasses. We used one of those camera obscura things that you can make with a cereal box.
Pro move.
Yeah, but I mean, we should have, much like a great leader, just stared right into it.
Jesus Christ, I just saw that before we signed on. Fucking Trump stared at the fucking sun for like a minute.
Yeah, and Julian Assange also said that, you don't need any special glasses, just stare right into it. That's only semi-true. For the brief second that the sun is completely covered by the moon, you could look up briefly without any eye covering and not damage your eyes. But don't go looking. Listen, don't look into the sun. Have you not seen Pi? Darren Aronofsky taught us. Don't look into the damn sun.
It was, we got ourselves a really good view here in East Tennessee, man. We were able just to go and sit out on our front yard there. And we did have the special stunner shades, so we looked through those at it and watched the whole thing. It was pretty damn cool. It really interested me in that the temperature dropped probably about 15 degrees or so.
Yeah, I heard that's really cool. Like, we didn't get that same effect, I don't think. But it was, like, I've seen pictures of in the path of the actual eclipse is just like so dark. That's so cool. Yeah, like, I wish I got to see that, but it
was kind of different from what I was expecting. Like, I really expected for it to be like completely like dark, like like nighttime during the day dark. But it was
that would have been awesome.
Yeah, but the light took on a really odd quality. Like, well, I'm sure you remember from growing up here in East Tennessee, like. Anytime that there's like tornado weather and like this,
oh man,
like in the middle of the day and the sky will be like green and the light just has this weirdly filtered kind of look about it.
Yeah, I really like that.
It's really neat. Yeah,
yeah.
Like the light looked kind of like that, only it was weirder because the sky was blue and it was otherwise, a bright, clear day. But the light just had this really weird filtered look. It was really, really interesting. It was very, very cool. So I'm definitely glad that I got to be in a good location for that. Pretty cool event.
I wonder how many people were, they thought like, oh, this would be the exact right time to shoot that one shot we need for our horror movie about the eclipse.
Dude, I wondered about that too.
And they were like, action. Fuck, the battery's dead.
I just hope that we get like a really sick like Deont word video that features it or something. I was really tempted all day to just be watching House of the Devil, but we watched that not too long ago to get in the eclipse sort of spirit of things,
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I mean, I hope no one was sacrificing anything during the eclipse, but if they were, I hope it was for a good cause.
Yeah, a good cause. March of Dimes.
Listen, if you're out there sacrificing babies, I hope it was for March of Dimes. I don't know how it's supposed to benefit them, but I hope that's what it was for.
Yeah. Well, Steve, the topic of our podcast this week is a little talkie flick that came out as a made-for-TV 2-part series.
Right.
When we were but kinder children.
Little ones.
Written by Stephen King.
That's Stephen King when he steps into Steve Urkel's machine that turns him into Stefan Urkel.
Oh my God. What if Stephen King totally had a Stephen King machine?
That'd be awesome. He steps out. Yeah, he's like that.
What kind of book would he come out writing?
He'd do a full-on like Danielle Steele erotic novel.
Yeah.
But it would be about a writer in New England.
Damn it, Stephen King. He'd shed the glasses and stuff. He'd have some contact lenses.
Yeah, he'd still kind of look like a mole, but like
he does look like a mole.
He does. He looks like the mole in the Winnie the Pooh cartoon.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to be reviewing the classic 2-part series, It, which is, it's kind of interesting because this is the first time that either of us have watched it before. We revealed that, I think, on our Killer Clowns episode that neither of us had ever seen It.
Yeah, I've read the book. Have you read the book?
I have not read the book. Okay, see, okay. I'm really interested to do so, but actually while we were at the beach, I saw it on the shelf, and then I realized it's about like a telephone book.
Yeah, it's like 1,200 pages long.
It's gigantic, and I was like, I'm not reading that. That's too much like work for my beach vacation.
Yeah. This is full on Stephen King cocaine period where like he was just doing the drugs and churning out work, and I read it in middle school, so I don't remember everything. I remember honestly though thinking in middle school that I was impressive for having read a long book, but also thinking that like the history and stuff, the context provided should get more of the spotlight. A lot of it is focused on the kids and their own struggles, because this is about childhood and growing up and all that sort of stuff. But like the real cool Lovecraftian element to Derry, Maine and the Pennywise and what is going on in the background that we don't get fully explained in the miniseries is really interesting and really like a good horror, good like Lovecraftian horror.
I definitely want to check it out. And one of the reasons that we're doing it at this particular time is because, of course, we have the remake coming out here in theaters as this is being released. Now, are you excited to see this? Are you going to see this, and what do you think about it?
I do want to see it because I think, honestly, I think this could have been done well, and it wasn't. So, I think that the previews I've seen so far, they bring the darkness into it that is sort of missing from the miniseries. I think the kids seem like better actors.
Right. Seth Green ain't even in it though.
Yeah, they should have thrown Seth. Seth Green could be in it. I mean, why not? Like, he could have even maybe played one of the kids. The guy looks the same as he did. I was
gonna say, dude, he is like, not aged at
like he's taller now, but he looks the exact same.
They should just have him in it like Dorf style, where he's just on his knees with like shoes on his knees.
That would be awesome. So yeah, it looks interesting, and reading that Cary Fukunaga was originally supposed to be the writer of the script, and then they went different with it. I'm a little hesitant.
Who is Fukunaga?
Cary Fukunaga is the guy who directed every episode of the first season of True Detective, which
shit.
Yeah, which is amazing. So like thinking of him doing it, he wasn't, from what I've read, he wasn't obsessed with staying true to the novel, which I think is something that needs to happen with it, because the novel it's too much. There's too much in there, and there's too much focus on okay, let me just talk a little bit about Stephen King, and I don't want to talk shit about him, because first off, Stephen King is not only a prolific author, but a very creative author and a very good author. He's written some really good stuff.
Oh yeah, and I mean, really, he laid down the foundation for very much of everything that we enjoy in horror movies too.
Yeah, but Stephen King also has some writerly quirks and tics that are not good, and I don't like them.
Yeah.
The fact that almost everything he's ever written, the main character, or at least one of the characters, is a writer. That's just, I mean, they say write what you know, but like, get some more experience if all you know is being a writer. Like, just go out in the world and learn something, so the next time you write what you know, it's not the exact same thing you wrote before. Does
he ever have any books with the main character's a cokehead?
He should. He should. He has experience with that. This is the thing that I always think that people have to address about Stephen King, and it's a quote from Stephen King, and I want to get your opinion on it. Okay. This is from Stephen King's book, Everything You Need to Know About Writing Successfully in 10 Minutes. He says, if you wrote something for which someone sent you a check, if you cashed the check and it didn't bounce, and if you then paid the light bill with the money, I consider you talented.
I don't know about talented.
Yeah, that's the crux of what he's saying, right? That's his statement. The talented part is his statement, and that's wrong.
Yeah, I don't think so, because it's like, to me, I equate that, of course, in music terms myself, because it's like, I know that there's plenty of people out there that are paying their light bills using checks from their music that they, recorded or whatever, that are absolutely untalented. I would say if you're doing that, then you are, let's say, resourceful, or let's say you are frugally or economically minded, but no, I would not say talented.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's Stephen King's thing is basically like, fuck it, ship it. Like, he writes his manuscript, fuck it, send it to the editor, they'll deal with it, I'm moving on to the next book. Like, in things where he has put more effort, more time into crafting things, they obviously come out better. That's just always true about any product. I mean, it's certainly true that the anxiety of being a creative person can force you to work too much, to overproduce on something, and you end up with something that ends up a little hollow or stale or meaningless, or there's too much depth to it that no one can really penetrate it. Like, but that's not going to be an issue with Stephen King. If he spends a little extra time on it, he gets a demonstrably better product. So, like, I see what he's saying here, but I guess when he says, I consider you talented, the talent, I would say, is the talent of survival, not the talent of being a writer.
That's a really good way to put it, yeah. I guess that's what I meant by being frugal or economically minded. Yeah, that's survival, yeah, definitely so.
So there's always that at the back of my mind when I read Stephen King or I see an adaptation of Stephen King's work. And the other thing that's always in my mind is that Stephen King dislikes the best adaptations of his work.
It certainly seems that way, right? Like, he historically hates, of course, Kubrick's Shining, which is my favorite scary movie ever. And I'll tell you, too, it's like, I can understand in a sense, because, yes, it is quite different from the book. I've read the book, and I think the book is fantastic, but those are like two entities that I absolutely love separately. Yeah, exactly. I love them for different reasons, but I really do like them both a lot. But yeah, you're right. He typically does hate the best film adaptations, and then the ones he has like a really heavy hand in, like the Shining TV series, kind of blow.
Yeah, or Maximum Overdrive, which he directed and is terrible and makes no sense. Like,
so kind of a mixed bag, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way he thinks, and it's good for a novel writer, the way he thinks is he wants to develop our understanding of each of the characters and our understanding of the setting and our understanding of the time. He wants to develop all those things, and he does those things by telling us. Like, he has the characters tell us those things.
Yeah.
That happens. I mean, this is an adaptation, obviously, of his work, and you can't blame him for the script, but a lot of this stuff is straight out of the book. There's like, we get exposition about the kids up until the end of the first part. Like, they're still telling us about themselves, and it's like they do it in a row. Like, do you remember the part near the very end where they're all sitting around talking about like their dream career?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just like, I'm gonna be this, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be this. Like, it's useless. Like,
yeah, it's kind of heavy-handed.
Yeah, in a novel, you can maybe play that out over a period of time where maybe you show a chapter in that kid's head and he's thinking about that, whatever. But in a movie, we don't need that shit. Like,
yeah,
why?
You can deliver all that through context kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there are parts where they're introducing each other to each other, and of course they say, this is so and so, and he is this person, and this is so and so, and he's this type. Like, just like, show us through their actions. You don't have to tell us all of it. And again, in a novel, you know, you can get away with a lot of telling. I mean, it's generally considered by my critics of novels that you should be showing and not telling, but readers of novels are generally fine with just being told by the characters exactly what's going on sometimes. So when you get to a movie, though, that's just gonna play terribly, and it does in this.
Well, do you think the remake is going to do any better about it?
I hope. I really do. I think there's because, as I said, I think the source material has a lot of good stuff to it.
Sure.
And it should be adapted well. I don't know that this is going to do it. I hope it does, because I always want to see a good horror movie, and I'd really like to see a good adaptation of it. I mean, I'm going to say this one's not terrible, but I got some problems with it.
Well, let me ask you this about the book versus our adaptations that we're seeing. So, of course, in the old school one that we're reviewing today, the narrative is constantly switching back and forth between flashback of the kids, current time as the adults, back and forth, back and forth. The remake looks as though it is only focusing on the kids portion of the story, and then there's supposed to be a part 2, which is the adult side of the story. So it's more or less the tale in chronological order.
That's exactly how it should have been done.
Is that how it is in the book?
No, it switches back and forth in the book.
Okay, so the TV series is more like the book in that it switches constantly.
Yeah, and that's definitely to its detriment. I know, you know, I didn't watch the previews for the new It before I watched It, because I didn't want any coloring of seeing the series itself. Watching the series, writing my notes, one of the things I said as I came through that, like, transition from the first part to the second part is, this should be kids than adults. Like, we don't need the adult stuff interspersed in the first part. Like, you need, even if you're making a miniseries and you know people are going to come back for the second part, make 2 parts that can stand alone. Make 2 parts that are good. And, like, the skipping back and forth doesn't benefit us in any way.
Well, that's the kind of thing, too, is, like, even for the original TV series, you know, with it being a 2-part, you know, 2-night event, it totally would have made sense for, you know, the first episode to be the whole kid's story, the second episode to be the adult story.
Yeah.
For it to be chronological. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not cool with stories that jump around timeline wise like that. I mean,
when
like,
it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, some movies are greatly enhanced by that sort of narrative, like Pulp Fiction, for example. But this is the kind of story that I think would have been totally fine being linear, chronologically, rather than doing this bouncing back and forth kind of thing. I liked it at times. But
Oh, yeah.
after, 3.5 hours of it, it's kind of like, okay, we're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
Maybe a little much. So I do have faith with these remakes that it'll be cool just seeing the kids' side of things. Plus, too, it's like, it seems like they are really, which I don't know if I can say they're borrowing from Stranger Things, when actually Stranger Things borrows from this a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually this, that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought it up. Like, seeing it through the lens of Stranger Things can lead to making a much better It movie. So
yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing, is like with Stranger Things, it is very much like what a lot of these old Stephen King adaptations sought to try to do, only Stranger Things fucking nailed the fuck out of it.
Right.
So now we're like remaking a Stephen King movie based on this thing that did a Stephen King story better than a Stephen King story had been done before on film.
Yeah, so it should improve the overall product, hopefully. Like, if they don't try to stick like too much to, like, if they're not just ripping off Stranger Things, like, and it's hard to rip off something that is directly related to the product that you're making, but I mean, you can easily, maybe get one of the kids from Stranger Things to be in the movie. Yeah. Oh wait, they did that.
Correct, they did. I'm not really exactly sure how I feel about the casting and the portrayal of Pennywise in here. Again, I haven't read the book, but it's like, man, after you have Tim Curry smash the shit out of a character and make it really iconic like that, I don't really know how you replace it. It has to be at that Heath Ledger Joker level, where it's like it's the same character but completely reimagined and taken in a completely different spin. So the guy really has his work cut out for him playing Pennywise in here, and it does look like they are playing it a different sort of way. I think somebody else told me they thought that it seemed more accurate to the book or something like that.
Yeah, it is dark. I think because Tim Curry, if you read a little bit about his role here, they originally wanted to do like a full prosthetic, like face mask sort of thing for Pennywise, and he had just done Legend, and he was like, no, I don't want to, like, I'm not going to do all that prosthetic. So like the simpler Pennywise, the one without the teeth all the time and without the contacts all the time, that is more of a, like, is more of, just out of necessity because you have Tim Curry and he's refusing to do all the prosthetics. I think it's good. I think Tim Curry does it so well, where he's like luring them in by being, he's still menacing but less like the way we see the clown in the previews for the upcoming movie. He's less like always intense. Like the fact that he's more like fun and trying to, I guess, menace the kids is, I really like that. But again, maybe the new adaptation will do that. Don't know.
I'm excited to see it, man, and maybe it will scar a whole new generation of kids, very much like how it did for our generation. Because I always remember, we're both kids of the 80s, of course. And I always remember meeting so many kids that were just absolutely mortified of clowns because they had seen it when they were children, and it just completely ruined their childhoods. And so I think that before we start getting into our review of it, I think it would be a really good time to start bringing up and chatting about, like, let's say maybe our top 5 things that absolutely scared the fuck out of us as kids and just ruined our childhoods. Because again, I know a lot of people that saw this, or they saw Child's Play, or some other scary movie when they were a kid, and it just wrecked their childhood. I didn't experience really any of those movies when I was a kid, but I had a number of other really stupid things that terrified me as a child. Did you, Steve?
Yes, I did. I have a list of them right here in front of me.
Well, how about I kick us off here with one of my favorite things that freaked the fuck out of me when I was a younger Ben.
Let's hear it.
So, one of the things that I was super scared of when I was a kid was fucking Santa Claus. I thought the entire notion
Already this is great. I did not expect that.
Yeah,
okay.
dude, like the entire idea to me as a kid that somebody that I didn't know was coming into my house while I was asleep just terrified the fuck out of me. And it's like, my parents were like, no, he's bringing you presents and stuff like this. And I was like, I don't know who he is, and he's in my house while I'm asleep. That's not cool. So my parents actually kind of had to like drop the ball on me really early just so I wouldn't be really, really fucking terrified on Christmas night. Because I really just apparently, I'm talking I was like 2 or 3. Really did not like the idea of somebody being in my house, even if he was bringing me a new, Super NES game or something like that. I was just not about to have it. So, yeah, Santa Claus, I think, was one of the first things I recall terrifying me.
That's really interesting. I also, I'll go ahead and start because I also have a character who terrified me as a child, but it's a little more, I guess, traditional. Freddy Krueger was terrifying to me as a child.
Yeah?
I've told the story in the past on the Elm Street episode about having, waking up with 103-degree fever and hallucinating that Freddy Krueger was behind the heater in my room. And like Freddy Krueger just stuck with me. It was like, as I got older, the fear subsided as I realized, like, oh, it's Robert Englund is being funny, and it's not really a thing to be afraid of. But it was still like, I think I mentioned last week that I had a dream where all of the Leatherface and Jason and Freddy Krueger and all these big horror characters were fighting it out, and in my mind Freddy was winning. So like even now in my mind I think Freddy's the most frightening of all those characters. So yeah, that's a huge childhood fear of mine. That's awesome.
I believe it too, and I knew a lot of other kids that, again, like I said, maybe saw that movie when they were a little too young for it. And it just freaked the fuck out of them. So I think that I totally would have been one of those kids that had my entire childhood ruined by it or Freddy Krueger or something like that. So I'm really glad that I didn't see that stuff when I was a kid. Now, another one of those that absolutely freaked me out when I was a kid is, okay, so you remember when we were kids, like little kids, like this is when Sesame Street was in its like golden age, right? And you remember, of course, Snuffleupagus, right?
Yes,
so
of course.
If our listeners don't know, he was this big woolly mammoth-looking, big brown, shaggy, mammoth-looking creature that was on Sesame Street. So we had like a little stuffed animal version of Snuffleupagus, right?
Okay.
And my brother, who's 3 years older than me, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 4, which means he was like 7 or so at the time. And through so much of our childhood, man, we had bunk beds. And I, as I mentioned on another show, I slept on the bottom bunk. My brother slept on the top bunk.
Bottom bunk's best.
Bottom bunk is the best, dude. So my brother would take this stuffed Snuffleupagus toy, and okay, it was probably the size of like a medium-sized dog, so a fairly large toy. And it was the big brown, shaggy, mammoth-looking thing, but the eyes on it were like, imagine like ping pong balls cut in half. Just big, bulbous white eyes with black dots in the middle of them, right? Snuffleupagus, if you recall, was kind of a heavily lidded, sort of sedated-looking thing, whereas like his eyelids were just kind of halfway down his eyes most of the time.
Yeah, he looks stoned.
Yeah, exactly. He looks stoned. But on this toy, for whatever fucking reason, they made it to where like the eyes were still full size, but basically you could kind of like physically pull the eyelids back and give him these big, like large Marge bug eyes if you wanted to.
Oh
no! So all the fucking time, man, my brother up in the top bunk in the middle of the night would like creep down and he'd lower down the Snuffleupagus toy like down into my bunk, and he'd be like, "Hey Ben." And he peel the eyelids back so it was just these big bulbous Snuffleupagus eyes. Be like, "I'm gonna kill you." It always scared the dog shit out of me, man. Just these big bulbous white eyes on this fucking Snuffleupagus tormenting me. Fuck older brothers, dude. So yeah, Snuffleupagus fucked my childhood up.
All right, listen, we didn't plan this, but my older brother created a fear in me. That fear is lakes.
Yeah?
Yeah, when I was little, I guess real little, I didn't even think about lakes, but then I saw Jaws, and we went to the lake to go swimming, and my brother told me that there were sharks in the lake. Now, he was trying to, I think, not make me afraid. I think he truly thought there were sharks in the lake, because he said there was a roped off section where everybody was swimming. He said, "See that rope out there? That keeps the sharks away. So just swim here. Don't swim anywhere else." I think he really thought it. I don't think he was trying to fuck with me. And like for the rest of like my childhood, I would just assumed like I eventually learned that there are no sharks in the lake, but like I still had that fear. Like, well, what the hell else might be down there?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't until like later in my teens that I was like, there's nothing in the damn lake. Like, I learned the history of the lake, and it's just like, oh, this wasn't even here 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
This is man-made. That's fucking funny. That totally seems like one of those just like dumb, stupid things that we believe when we're kids, where you don't even question it. You just go with it, and you're like, that seems to make sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, why would there be sharks in the ocean and not in the lake? Doesn't make any sense.
I even know so many people that were scared of like sharks being in their swimming pool and shit like that. Like, oh, they'll get in through the pool drain and shit like that.
Yeah, well, that's probably from that one Jaws 3D, where he gets into SeaWorld.
Oh my god, I haven't seen it.
Or I guess she. Jaws is technically female.
So lakes, that's one of your scares, huh?
Yeah, I still don't like them. Still don't want to, like, if I see a lake, I don't want to get in it.
No. That's awesome. Another one that absolutely scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, and it's funny because I never even saw the movie, but when I was about 5 or 6 years old and I got chicken pox, I think I even mentioned this on another show. I was just kind of like sitting on the couch eating fudge ripple ice cream and watching TV all day and stuff. Having chicken pox, I thought was pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it was the stuff, man.
But during that time period is when they were advertising Gremlins 2 on TV.
Yeah.
I had never seen Gremlins. I had never seen Gremlins 2. But, dude, the image of the actual, like, Gremlins, like Spike and all them.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrified the fuck out of me when I was a kid.
That makes sense.
Just absolutely mortified me, dude. So anytime those commercials would come on, I would like freak the hell out and like fucking run out of the room and stuff. And even like years later, like when they started making like the Gremlins like video games and stuff,
Uh-huh.
And there'd be like advertisements in my like GamePro magazine or Nintendo Power or whatever, and it would have like pictures of the Gremlins in there. It would still like, whoa, like freak me out,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what the deal is. The look of those creatures really just set off like every instinct in my body to like get the fuck away from this thing.
Yeah, I did see the Gremlins movies, and yeah, I also thought they were really gross. Didn't like looking at them.
We should totally do Gremlins like for like a Christmas episode or something.
Oh, absolutely. Gremlins is my wife and I celebrate Halloween Christmas. It's from Halloween to Christmas, we watch a lot of horror movies, but specifically, we like to watch Christmas-themed horror movies.
I like it.
And there are a ton of them, and Gremlins is one of the better ones, for sure.
Righteous, man. So yeah, those damn Gremlins fucking freak me out. What's another one of yours?
Not being able to breathe.
Ugh, that's bad.
Yeah, as I've said before, I've always suffered from sleep paralysis. I've also always suffered from sleep apnea, even as a very skinny 4-year-old. My snores and my gasping for breath would keep people up at night. So yeah, I developed a healthy fear of not being able to breathe, and I would freak the fuck out when I was little. Like if somebody would tickle me, not because I was ticklish, not because I was like particularly ticklish, but because I would end up not being able to breathe, and like I would just get violent. Like if somebody was tickling me and I started to get that feeling like I couldn't take a full breath, like I would just start punching.
Yeah,
whoever it was.
You go there like, no, fucking stop, kind of thing.
Yeah, and anytime, like, I do not cotton to this, let's go to the pool and play some childish games where we push somebody's head under the water.
Oh, dude, that would always piss me the fuck off.
That would set me off immediately. Just like, fuck you. I
must share a little bit of that too, Steve, because, like, I remember that same deal, where there'd always be that asshole that would push you into the pool or whatever, or push your head under the water. And I'm not really much of a swimmer anyway, so that kind of thing would always just infuriate me and get me super, super scared. But I also, like, a little claustrophobic and stuff too. So I remember, like, shit like, my brother, like, rolling me up in a rug or something like that to where I couldn't move, and just, again, kind of getting the same way where it's just like you hit freak out mode super fast.
Yeah, you know what? I don't get the joke, honestly. I don't get what, like, I never got it as a child. I don't get it as an adult. What is the funny part about pushing someone's head under the water? Like,
I don't get it.
You might die. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like, at the best, you'll snort up a bunch of chlorinated water and it'll burn your sinuses. That's hilarious.
Haha, everyone's having a good time. Like,
I've never understood it. Man.
But we also don't get pranks, so
there you go.
We're not. Maybe we just need to lighten up, you know?
I think the fear of not being able to breathe is pretty rational, Steve, but one of mine that I think is quite irrational that I had as a child was the fear of a historic East Tennessee landmark that we have all visited before. I'm speaking, of course, of Dollywood's Blazing Fury.
Wait, okay, all right. You're not saying you were afraid of amusement rides. You're saying you're specifically afraid of that roller coaster.
Specifically Blazing Fury. So,
okay.
For our listeners that don't know, we grew up right around Dollywood, which is Dolly Parton's theme park, or as it should be known, Silver Dollar City.
Man, that Dolly, she really came in and ruined the industry, huh?
Man.
Let's just go ahead and take the side nobody takes with Dolly Parton. Fuck her.
Yeah, fuck her. She ruined Silver Dollar City.
Oh, I want to help kids read and rebuild the Smokies. Get out of here.
Their cocky ass Dollywood.
I'm gonna go ahead and apologize. I like Dolly.
Yeah, Dolly's awesome.
Dolly, I know she's a listener. Dolly, I'm sorry.
So
what was it?
So over at Dollywood, they have a ride that has been in place since, I assume, probably the earlier mid 80s, right? Called the Blazing Fury.
Yeah, I remember it.
And
the
idea with the Blazing Fury is it's kind of like, it's not really so much of a roller coaster as it is kind of like it's a small world kind of ride where you're rolling through and seeing all these animatronic sort of scenes going on. And basically the premise is that you're rolling through a town just like
that's on fire.
That's on fire, yeah. And it's like an old hillbilly town up in the boonies, and you've got all kinds of various scenes of like moonshiners and miners and stuff like this that are fleeing their burning homes. And there's so much just absolutely choice dialogue, man. Like that one scene where there's like the woman and the guy, and he's like, you look like you've been kissing that steam train.
The woman says, come here, you big old hunk of man. I want to kiss on you some.
You look like you've been kissing that steam train. And then, like, she's about to, like, jump out of the window of the second story of the house. She's like, weak back or not, here I come. But for some reason, like, as a kid, all of that stuff, like all of the fact that all that stuff was like burning down, and then the weird, I've always been kind of creeped out by animatronic shit.
Yes.
I don't think any of us as kids loved animatronic things, like whether it's like
no,
you know, like a Celebration Station or a Chuck E. Cheese or a Blazing Fury. Like, I don't think any of us liked those things. I think they just weirded us out because they were, I don't know, man. So as a kid, that animatronic shit plus, you know, houses burning down really freaked the fuck out of me. And then that ride kind of concludes with like, it looks like you're about to get hit by a oncoming locomotive.
Yeah, and then big drop. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a big drop, and that always freaked me out a lot. And it's funny, man, because like, when was the last time that you were on the Blazing Fury?
They changed it now. It's called the Flooded Mine or something, or no? Is that
okay?
Anyway,
they also used to have the Flooded Mine, and they changed it. The Blazing Fury is still here. They closed the Flooded Mine because a water moccasin got into the ride and fucking bit somebody.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I think the last time I rode the Blazing Fury, I was maybe 24 or 25.
So it's been about 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm 26 now, so yeah.
It is so shot. It's one of those things that you go back and you're like, oh my god, like how could this have scared me as a kid? Because it is just busted as fuck, man.
Yeah, because like the animatronics look nothing like people.
No.
They look like they were crudely carved into styrofoam by, I don't know, a carny in 74, and they just kept it.
That's exactly what it is. And it's like they haven't updated anything. They haven't fucking changed the costumes on those characters. They haven't put a fresh coat of paint on shit. It's just busted as fuck. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe like, you know, as a kid in 1989 or whatever it was, whenever I saw it, when all the paint was fresh, maybe it actually was terrifying.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think I get what you're saying though, because like I guess that's what they were going for, the anxiety of like seeing something burn. Like that is scary. I guess I just didn't think of it as a kid. Now as an adult, I could feel like maybe if I went through it, I'd get a little anxious, because the idea of the town's burning down and there's not really anything you can do about it. Like,
I mean, the thought of like, what if some old gal wanted to kiss you and she looked like she'd been kissing on that steam train?
Yeah, I mean, that's the most frightening thing of all, right?
Ooh.
Oh, why? Your face is melting. Like, if you were kissing on a steam train, you'd look like Red Skull, basically. Like,
yeah, you look like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. So, I didn't have a particular ride that I was afraid of, but it's interesting that you mentioned the animatronics, because I was afraid of dolls as a young man. And it wasn't about Chucky. It wasn't about Child's Play. It came before that. Dolls just are creepy, and when I was very little, there were a number of dolls like the Teddy Ruxpin and things like that also their eyes moved and they talked.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
And so growing up on a steady stream of that, and looking at realistic dolls, like there were a lot of dolls where people were like trying to make it look more like an actual kid,
right? And
all of that just it upset me, like when I would see those dolls. And my sister had a ton of them, and I always just felt really uncomfortable when I was alone in a room with a doll.
Yeah.
Because their eyes are just looking at you. And I know they're not attached to anything, but they look real. Like, they look like eyes. I guess much like your Snuffleupagus.
Oh, God.
The eyes are the frightening part. Like, it adds depth to this toy.
To the
like,
terror.
You look at a Barbie's eyes and you're not like, oh, that's real. But you look at, some doll's eyes and it's just like, Jesus Christ. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. How does an adult Steve feel about a real doll?
Actually, I think that is a great concept for a horror movie now. A real doll that comes to life and kills.
Holy shit. Has nobody done that yet?
I don't know. Maybe.
Trademark Dead and Lovely podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Real doll. I don't know if we'll need to cut this out, but I've been working on homeschool horror a good bit lately.
No way, really?
Yeah. It's, I mean, of the several ideas you and I have come up with, and the ideas that I've been working on already, that's the one that's like stuck with me. Homeschool horror, I think, is such a great idea. Like, and I've been thinking of it in relation to movies like Parents, and The People Under the Stairs.
Parents is a fucked up, weird movie, dude.
Yeah, just like this idea of suburban horror where it's like you don't know what's going on. behind closed doors. I think it's so relevant now because, you know, of the election, and a lot of us were very shocked to discover how many people would vote for Donald Trump. We still don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, it's very true.
Still scary. It's still frightening. Like, so, yeah, I think that's the best idea we've come up with. But real doll coming to life, that's fucking awesome.
I mean, what if you even framed it like a Chucky style sort of thing, where it's like the spirit of a serial killer enters a real doll?
But it's like a male serial killer, and he comes to and he's just getting railed by an obese dude living in his mom's basement.
Or you know what? What if it's sort of a reverse horror movie where? Okay.
Oh no!
What if it's just like a serial rapist, like, and he gets trapped in the body of a real doll?
And he can't move.
Yeah.
He just has to, like, oh no. That's good. I like that too.
Best desserts.
All right. Cool.
Trademark Dead and Lovely.
Trademark Dead and Lovely, guys. I think if you say that means, you know, nobody can work off that.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last thing that I would say in my top 5 of stuff that I was absolutely mortified of as a kid would be basically anybody that didn't live in my house. And even at that, still questionable at times.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you did tell us at one point about your fear that your parents were aliens.
Yeah, exactly. So even that was still questionable and stuff. Yeah, I thought my parents were aliens that were going to eat me. But it's like, even going to like, you know, like family gatherings for like Christmas and stuff like that. And I was just with my, you know, aunts and uncles and nieces, or not nieces or nephews, but like cousins and stuff like this. It's like, I was just mortified of all these people that I didn't know. I used to be the most shy fucking person in the world, where, like I said, I couldn't even talk to my cousins and shit. Like, I'm sure they all thought I was just weird as fuck as a kid. It's funny, I actually just ran into my cousin, Jessica, for the first time in probably like 17 or 18 years at a brewery in Knoxville. Yeah, she came up to me and she was like, "Hey, do you remember who I am?" And listen, I sound like fucking big shot guy right now. I get that a lot, just because I meet a lot of people, and I meet a lot of people online and stuff through my YouTube channel and all that jazz. So I guess I kind of had that I'm searching my memory banks look on my face, and she's like, "I'm your cousin Jessica." I was like, "Oh my god, holy shit!" So we caught up and stuff, which was cool. And I'm glad to have maybe cleared my name as a weirdo with at least one family member, because god, dude, I was just weird as shit as a kid. I could not talk to absolutely anybody, man. I had the hardest time making conversation, even with people that I shared DNA with. So yeah, I don't think anything really scared me more than like people that I don't know as a kid.
Real afraid of strangers. That's
stranger danger.
Yeah, listen, it was ingrained in us, honestly. Like, there was so many cartoons and stuff of that time that would have like that message. There were so many messages in cartoons that stuck for sure, but like also may have created a lot of irrational fears in our generation.
Oh yeah, because I don't think that Mamaw was about to kidnap me or anything like that.
You know, hey, I think, to be honest, I think the statistics are you're most likely to be kidnapped by a member of your family. So maybe your fear was...
And that was kind of also mixed up with all the satanic panic goings on of our childhood too. So I'm sure that I just took all that shit way too seriously.
My last fear, Ben, and this is... this is, I guess, what fueled a lot of my childhood. I was afraid of being alone in the world.
Oh, yeah,
Not alone in the sense of being the only person in the world. That was actually a fantasy I had as a child, because I saw the movie Omega Man, and that happens basically in that movie, and it's like, oh, that would be kind of cool to just get to walk around and do whatever you want. But like the actual fear of like, like nobody gets me,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I don't get them, and like, you know, like, what if what if nobody ever gets me? What if I never get anybody else? It was really weird growing up, because like my family, like my cousins and I, my brother and my sister, we all hung out all the time, and I felt a kinship. I felt like we got each other in some way, but I always still felt like I was. Like, when I would do stuff or say stuff that I thought was, like, funny or fun, a lot of times it wouldn't go over well. Like, it would sort of go over their heads, or not be not be understood in the way I'd hoped it would be understood. I think we all go through that, obviously. That's just the human condition. But, like, I had a particular, like, fear that it would always be that way.
No doubt.
So, yeah, it stuck with me. It wasn't until, I think, maybe 8th grade that I started feeling like I was actually making friendships and really meeting people and feeling like I was meeting people that had similar views and ideas to me.
Yeah.
Which, you know, obviously you want to meet a lot of people with different views and things, but it's real nice to find out you're not the only one who thinks things.
Well, you know, I think that's probably a lot of my fear with strangers and even family and stuff too as a kid, is like, you know, as a kid, dude, it's like all that I was into was like drawing comic books and like video games.
Yeah, I loved video games, TV.
I did not play sports.
I did.
I did not hunt or anything like that.
No.
I wasn't into any of this stuff, and it's like a lot of my family, especially on my dad's side, they were all, you know, just good old redneck people. So It's like I had literally nothing to talk about. It's like my entire universe was like comic books and video games. And so it's like whenever I'd get together family members and they would do nothing but hunt and watch football, it's like I had literally nothing to talk about. And I think that was like where a lot of my fear came from, is just that kind of like what you're talking about, not relating to or not being related to in any way. I think that's where a lot of my shit came from too.
Yeah. I think that might be why, actually, because we all played sports in my family. My cousins and my brother and my sister, we all were playing baseball, football. My sister played softball. She was a cheerleader. Like, we all did that stuff up to a point, but I always felt kind of like, even though I wanted to do it because I wanted to hang out with my cousins, I also didn't want to do it because I wasn't that into the sport itself, like playing football. I did like baseball some, but I would also get kind of disheartened with it and just sort of feel like I don't want to do this anymore. But it wasn't, I guess, until later that I actually got into sports. Like, I got into watching them. And I think a lot of that has to do with, that was one of the things that I knew. Like, I knew the rules, I knew how it was played, and also my family liked it. So, like, it was a way of, like, having common ground.
Right.
Like, getting into sports was like, oh, well, we have something to talk about. And, like, to this day, my brother and I, when we message each other and stuff, like, it's either about sports or politics. Like, that's it. That's all we really have to go back on. It's like, well, we can always talk about sports or we can always talk about politics. We don't always agree, but we always have something to talk about.
Yeah. Right on, man. Yeah, I think that's definitely, I think, a big thing for a lot of people as their kids, is just being understood, you know?
Yeah. That's so yeah, that was a big fear of mine. I think I still have it. It's still there. I think we all do, probably.
Definitely so. I'm glad that I didn't see it when I was a kid, though. I think that it would have freaked the fuck out of me, much like a lot of these other scary movies and stuff, because I know a lot of people that just are still like irrationally afraid of clowns because they saw this too early on. So with that being said, let's kind of get into our review portion.
Awesome.
Of good old classic It. So as I mentioned, this was the first time that I watched the 2-part It series. My wife got it for me on Blu-ray for my birthday, so we watched it probably about a month or month and a half ago. And at that time, we hadn't planned on doing a podcast about it, so I didn't take notes or anything. So my recollection of the names of a lot of the characters and stuff like that, I'm sure, is quite fuzzy at best.
It's okay.
So in this episode, Steven might have to do what Jesus does and take the wheel.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. Listen, Jesus sometimes says to me, "Hey, Steven, take the wheel."
Steven, take the wheel.
Steven, take the wheel.
So this is the
Take
first
it
time.
from my hand.
This is the first time that you watched it too, right?
Yeah. This was the first time I watched it, and I think it probably would have, if I had watched it as a child, it probably would have stuck with me more. It probably would have had more to it. But this is directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, who's a frequent collaborator with John Carpenter.
Okay.
His other films include Halloween 3, which we all know is the second worst Halloween.
Season of the Witch.
Actually, that it could have been good. That Halloween 3 could have been good, but it's not.
We'll cover that. We'll cover that at some point.
Yeah. He also directed Fright Night 2. You might see a bit of a pattern here. He directed sequels. And he directed the sequel to John Carpenter's Vampires Los Muertos, which was a direct to DVD type of thing.
Sick.
He's not well known for directing. This would be his biggest project. The one thing though that we should know about him is that he was the guy in the Michael Myers mask in the closet scene. So,
okay, right on.
So I would say if I were him, the two things I'd be most proud of that I'd put out in the world would be first it, and then second being Michael Myers in the closet scene. Because those are two awesome things. Way to go. This is Stephen King's 22nd book.
Holy shit.
Yeah. This in 1986 it came out. His 22nd book. This guy, it's insane how much he's produced in his lifetime.
How many books has he fucking written?
I do not know. I didn't write that down. I wish I had.
Wow.
But this is very clearly in his cocaine era. He has said definitively that Cujo was written entirely on cocaine. So that was 1981. And then Needful Things, he has said, is the first book he wrote completely sober, which was 1991. So there was a 10-year period where he was super coked up writing books.
Wow.
Yeah. So this adaptation was written by Lawrence D. Cohen. Most every script he's written has been an adaptation of Stephen King, including Carrie. He wrote the adaptation of Carrie, which
I think is pretty good. Yeah, I've read the book and I've seen the movie, and I think that is pretty fine.
I think what happened here, and as we get into the problems, I just want this to be like in our minds so we can remember that this was originally planned to be an 8 to 10 hour series.
Jesus Christ, that is a lot of film.
Yeah, and it was originally to be directed by George Romero. So that would have been like, a 4 to 5, maybe 5 to 6 part miniseries. Mm-hmm. They would have been able to go more in depth into all these things that they left in the final product that they should have cut out when it came down to just doing a 2-part miniseries. But
let me ask you, in terms of the length of the flick, did you sit down and watch this all in one go?
No, I couldn't. I tried.
We watched it as a 2-parter. Like I think we pretty much did it kind of like how it was on TV, where we watched half of it one night and then watched the other half of it the next night. I would imagine sitting and watching it straight through to be very tiresome. But kind of watching it as 2, hour and a half long, a little longer than that, movies. I don't know. I didn't think that it seemed too long.
No, I mean, if you cut it up into 2 parts,
I think it's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it's fine. The Stephen King had very little to no involvement in the adaptation process, but he has said that he likes the miniseries. So he likes the final product. He thinks it captured what he was going for as best you could for a miniseries. So we have that to work off of. We know that it was supposed to be bigger. There was supposed to be more time to flesh out these details, and that Stephen King likes the final product.
Wow.
I don't like the final product. I don't think
not so much.
No, not so much. I don't think in the end that this is a good movie. I don't think this is 2 good movies. I think there's a good movie there. It could be brought out, but it wasn't.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think about? Let's kind of split it up as far as acting wise. What do you think about the kid actors and how they do in the movie?
Seth Green is Seth Green. Seth Green's always been Seth Green. Like if you see him in his earliest roles, and this is one of them, he's Seth Green. Like he's no different than he is today. He's charming. He has a good comedic timing, etc. The kid who plays the main guy, Jonathan Brandis, no, not good.
He's the kid with the stutter, right?
Yeah, not good at all.
Right.
But I don't know. The kid who plays Ben, I think is pretty good. I think some of his Ben's the tubby kid.
Okay.
He's pretty good, but there are a lot of lines in this that there's no way even the best child actor could have delivered well.
That's true.
I feel like it's tough. The girl, I don't remember her name, didn't write it down. I know her name in the movie, but I don't remember the actress's name.
Mm-hmm.
The girl who plays Bev is good. Again, her lines, not great. But yeah, overall the acting's not great. It's pretty bad.
Kind of average 80s child actor kind of level.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a TV miniseries, I guess people would have been like, yeah, that's about right. But could have done better, I think.
I hear you, man. I thought that they did okay. Like, honestly, I'll tell you, my expectations for this going into it were rock bottom low. I really figured that this would be a complete letdown on all fronts going into it. Just one of those movies that totally did not age well at all. So my expectations were extremely low going in. So I'll put that out there too as far as my judgments.
I think that actually helped in the end for me too. Mm-hmm. I probably would be more angry right now about this movie if I had gone in expecting it to be as good as people say, or to stick with me as much as other people have said. Mm-hmm. 'Cause it's not good. There are elements that are good, but that doesn't save this in the end. The kids, there are too many of them.
There's a lot of there's a lot of them.
Too many kids and too many white guys that could have been just molded into one. For sure.
I can completely see that. Yeah, they definitely could have economized there and just sort of molded a few and a couple, yeah.
Yeah, all we really need are Bill, Ben, Bev, Mike, and maybe one of the others. Yeah. Maybe Seth Green. Maybe. But they have all these kids that don't, like, they have the kid Stan who doesn't get fleshed out at all, and so you expect he's gonna die. Like, you expect him to not be around.
Yeah, he's the red shirt.
Yeah, yes, exactly. He's the red shirt. He doesn't have much to say. There's not a whole lot of, like, you don't connect with him that much. But he's also poorly written. Mm-hmm. Like, his attributes are Jewish and doubt stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's already, I mean, like, I get that you want to make a character who's more scientific, who's going to doubt stuff, and they need that. But why do you make him Jewish too? Why do you attach, like, because then that attaches this context of, like, well, the Jews doubted Jesus was the Christ. Like, the Jews are doubters. He's a doubter. Like, and in the end, like, it's a negative thing. Like, it's not a positive. Also, why is it that Mike, who is one of the main characters, I mean, he's our narrator almost through the entirety of it. He's the one who sets everything up and tells us what's going on, but they don't introduce the character of Mike as a child until over an hour into the film.
Yeah, that was a bit of odd pacing, right? Where it's like, oh, then he shows up. Okay.
Yeah, he should have already been, like, you know what should have started this movie, honestly, is that we get maybe the dam scene and stuff, and then we meet Mike. Like, we see that these kids are they're a unit, and then Mike comes along and completes them. Right. And then we get all the rest of this stuff. Don't give me an hour of, here's our core group. Oh yeah, also there's a guy named Mike. We'll get to him.
Yeah,
he's the first person you met as an adult.
Started the story.
Yes, he's the one who starts the story. Yeah, and like, the part, like, he sets up the world. Like, when he's talking in front of the classroom, he helps to set up what's going on in the world. So again, we should have had that earlier in the film. Like, don't give us that an hour into the film. Give us that, you know, in the first 20 minutes, so that then we're getting like, oh, this is a whole sprawling world where in this city all of these things are going on.
I think that's a pretty fair judgment. I hadn't really thought about that though, but yeah, you're right. Why did they introduce him that fucking far into the movie?
Yeah, and I will also say I have one like real big gripe. Just and this is with the source material and this is that if you have 7 friends, you'll have more friends. Like, that's just how circles of friends work. If you have 7 friends, those friends will make friends that will become your friends. Like, you have 7 friends, you have the world. So, and that's kind of the setup, I guess, is that like these 7 are close. So by being close, it doesn't matter that they're losers, according to these psychopath bullies. Like, but also if you have 7 friends, it's just going to keep growing. You're going to meet more people. You're not the losers. You're just being called losers by psychopaths.
Now, what do you think about the adult versions of the kids too? How do you think that they're acting in their portrayal of their childhood counterparts is?
Ned O'Toole is good. She plays Bev. Yep. She's good. She does a real good job.
I think so. She's probably the best in the movie.
Yeah. The guy who plays Mike is good. He I love, I don't know if this was the choice of the actor or if he just says things like this, but he can't say dairy. He says durry. He can't say he says terrible like Charles Barkley. Like
terrible.
I hope that's a choice. That guy, the guy who plays Mike, he's in a ton of stuff. Like, I think he was the dad in Sister or something like that. Like, he's in a ton of stuff after this, and I don't remember him doing that, so it's probably a choice.
Who's the main dude that's like the writer? What's his name?
Bill.
Yeah. He looks like a damn like domestic terrorist. Like, he looks like he's off to like bomb the Trade Center or something.
Yeah, like he looks like they probably went to him in Contact to play the role that eventually went to that Busey kid. Like,
yeah,
he would be the terror. He looks like a Christian terrorist.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. He does those fucking aviator glasses, and he's kind of got like the dead eyes through most of the movie too. Harry
Anderson has nothing to work with in this. I don't know if he punched up the lines and the bad humor was his choice, or if it's just terrible. Like,
he's the comedian character, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, if you want to call that comedy, it's not. It's fucking
a matter
not.
of opinion, really.
Yeah, it's a natural extension of the comedy that we're getting from the childhood version of him, which is stupid. It's terrible. It's not funny.
Man, he's corny.
Yeah, he has like one of those hand buzzer things. Come on. Gee, I'm surprised he never pulled out a rubber chicken.
Yeah. His jokes in the movie are just, he comes
not
in a
funny?
little too hot. Yeah, he comes in a little too hot on those.
I've known kids like this, like growing up, that were like, I'm the funny guy, and it's like, no, you're not. You're not. Like, what you're doing is being an asshole and saying it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, that's not funny.
Not the
it's
same
just
at all.
being an asshole. So yeah, Harry Anderson, I loved him in Night Court, but he's not particularly good in this. John Ritter, this is disappointing to say, but he's not good in this.
You don't think so?
He's really bad. No. Oof. God. I don't know if it's... He seems so fatherly. That's just my thing with John Ritter, is I can't see him as this, like, playboy architect. He's so fatherly.
That's fair enough. Yeah, like, that's not really his sort of type of character.
Yeah. So, I don't think... I mean, it's not his fault. The lines he's saying aren't great, and he's cast against type, and he's just, he doesn't come across the way I would expect him to. And then who else we got? That's it, right? Oh, also the guy who owns the limousine service. I forget his name.
Oh yeah.
They call him the sissy kid. He, like, I get the sense that maybe Stephen King was going for he's gay. Like,
yeah, that's how I read it the whole time.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that actor's fine, honestly. I mean, as far as the role goes, he doesn't have a lot to work with, but he does fine with just being sort of neurotic and stuff.
Yeah.
I think in the end, like, nobody does great in this. Nothing, like, it's not a product of people trying to excel. It's a product of people trying to get it done. And
yeah, I could see that. And, you know, to me, it's like, again, going in with the expectation of this being a, you know, of the time period made for TV movie.
Yeah.
I think I expected the acting to be just abysmal, you know, like fucking soap opera level acting.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought they did better than I expected them to.
Yeah.
It's just so hard going back and watching stuff like this when, again, we've been spoiled by things like Stranger Things that are just exceptional, man. I think it's kind of hard to take a step back and remember, okay, this was actually above average for the time period, because by today's standards, it's very below average. But I don't know. I think for me, I thought they did a pretty good job, and they did a pretty good job of carrying mannerisms from the childhood actors to their adult counterparts.
Yeah,
you know, but
that's
you know,
true.
at the same time, it's like there's a lot of things in the movie, both with the childhood segments and the adult segments, that did kind of bug me, which is like certain words and certain lines that they never fucking explain, that you know that Stephen King just had like an absolute hard-on for, that he's like, no, you have to put this in the movie, it's important. Like how they say beep beep all the time.
Uh-huh.
They never fucking explain that, but apparently, I guess in the book, that's like kind of a code word that they use to tell one of the characters to shut up, that he's talking too much or something. They never explain that in the movie at all, so you just constantly have adults and children going beep beep, beep beep, and I thought that was pretty annoying. And then even too, like, there's a few scenes in there that are kind of could have been really fucking sick. Like, I think it's that scene where one of the kids goes into the old abandoned mansion, and like Pennywise is coming down the stairs as the really fucked up looking skeleton.
Yeah.
And you remember he has like the line that he says, fuck, I can't remember what it is, but it's one of those things kind of like, you know, the sly fox quickly leapt over the lazy brown dog. And like he says that to like keep himself centered. But
yeah, he says the Scouts pledge. That's what it is.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
But it's like it makes zero sense in the context of the movie because it's not explained at all.
Ever. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of these, like, I guess they were like, these are good. This is good color from the book. Like, these quirks should come out, but then like they don't mean anything to us. They're like they're never really given depth. Right? Yeah.
It's kind of like it's fan service for fans of the book, but it's like for the casual watcher, it's just way too deep of a cut because there's no way you can make that logical leap to figure out what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, and there's a mixture here of everything is either too shallow or too deep.
I would say that's a very fair way to say that, yeah.
Yeah. Like, one of the first lines that we get in this film is, I'm the cop, you're the librarian. Okay? It's just like we get you don't have to say it. That's stupid. That's a stupid line. Like, all the cop has to say to establish, like, I'm in charge here is stay away from this case or something like that. Not some stupid, like, let's establish who I am and who you are.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, just real on the nose exposition.
Yeah, and also, like, I just don't understand how things like this slip by. In the first 10 minutes, what the deputy says he'll have a cow, and then we see Bill as a kid, and he says Mom will have a bird.
Yeah, like, what the fuck is that about?
Yeah, like, they're not close enough to be connecting. It's not connecting something.
Yeah.
It's just like they were writing the script and nobody noticed that, like, you know, a few pages later you say basically the same thing. And they also try to invent a lot of bullshit. Like Ben, as an adult, says, "You bet your fern I was." We used to say that as kids. That's not a thing.
No.
And it doesn't come back. So what the fuck? Why?
Exactly. And that's the kind of thing where I wonder if there was like a scene in the book where that made sense. And then they just left it in the movie as, fucking fan service for people who are just worshipers of the book or whatever. But to all of us watching it, it makes no fucking sense. You bet your fern.
Yeah, like, who does that serve, though? Imagine you're a big fan of the book, and you're just sitting there like, man, I hope they say that you bet your fern line.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, they said fern.
Yeah, you bet your fern! Everybody's got a fern shirt on. Fern, 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 fern. Like, of all the things, like, if you're dealing with fan service, first off, like, don't just try to rip shit out of the book and throw it in. Like, find out what the fans like. I mean, if you're adapting this and you're not a fan of the book, you definitely need to talk to people who are fans of the book. If you're a fan of the book and you like specific things, talk to other fans of the book and make sure that that's what they like.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's just bullshit in the end if all you're throwing out there is stuff that's leapt out to you but no one else cares about.
Now, the real kind of highlight of this flick, though, of course, is Tim Curry as Pennywise, the dancing clown. So, I think that the job that he put down is pretty fucking rad. I think that it was really a tightrope kind of act, because if he just would have acted hyper menacing all the time, then you're like, why would any kid ever follow this guy around? But the thing is he acts cute and charismatic and funny and stuff. Like you would expect a clown to do so, and then on a dime the camera will change angles and he'll suddenly have these fucking crazy contacts and pointy teeth, and like the first time that happened, which is pretty early in the movie, it really did kind of like, I went, whoa, like that really did kind of freak me out a little bit, because his portrayal of the clown, like I said, it's so light and everything. Yeah. And then it'll get really fucked up out of nowhere. Especially with the pointy teeth and stuff, I think is really fucking freaky.
There's a real dark story going on here that's not being told in a dark way. Mm-hmm. Like they're children being killed.
Yeah.
Like Georgie, he gets his arm ripped off. Like,
yeah, dude, that's something that really blew me away about this too, is like, it was kind of more hardcore than I expected it to be. Like within the first minute or so of the movie, a little girl gets abducted off of her tricycle, and then it's like you were saying, you find out that like his little brother's arm was ripped off, and kids are like mangled and dismembered and eaten and all this other shit. It's like, yeah, it was pretty fucking dark to be on TV, dude, on network TV.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I don't know if because it was on TV, they were told they had to balance it out by one, the light, it's just too bright. Everything's too bright.
It is.
There's too much focus on the kids having fun. Like, there's a whole lot of the kids having a good old time that doesn't really relate to the rest of the story. Right. I mean, the building of the dam is what brings them together, but like, why? What is the purpose of the dam? It never does anything. Right. Like, if you want to bring them together over something, make sure that it's something that serves a purpose. More, I would say, just a quick punch up would be, again, you have the scene with the rock fight earlier on, and have that be the thing that really brings them together.
That seems like the thing that would solidify a friendship more than anything.
Yeah, not building a dam for no reason. Like, I mean, it's fun. I remember doing shit like that as a kid, going in the woods, building forts, but like, and if you're, writing a novel where you're wanting to bring people back to their childhood, great. You can really go into those things. But when you're talking about a movie, it's got to move faster. It's got to be quicker. Everything's got to, everything needs to pay off. Nobody wants all these like weird loose ends that don't go anywhere. Like, we don't really explore the fact that the parents don't care. Like they do care, but they know that something is going to happen, and when it starts happening, they're just like, well, there's not anything we can do about it. Let's just try to keep our kids inside.
Well, I think that's kind of a big message through a whole lot of the movie, though, is that the kids are going through these things. The kids are going through these experiences where they're being abused and bullied and all kinds of other terrible things, and the people in the town of Derry are just literally turning a blind eye to it and acting like it's not happening. It's like the town, which is true of every town, and it's really dark to even fucking talk about, but it's like you always knew those kids in your school that you knew their parents were beating them and stuff like this, or you knew that kid at church who his parents were alcoholics and stuff like this, but everybody just kind of doesn't talk about it because it's easier to do that. You know what I mean?
That's actually, that's something, this is dark, but it is something we as a society are still really struggling with. I mean, we're finally at a point where we're really having discussions about rape and what it means, but we still don't want to address the fact that a large portion of rape victims are children and kids in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we still want to deal with it as these are adults. Like, these are, and we always, we have this disconnect because we don't refer often to the rape of a child as rape. We call it molestation. Like, we give it a word that's more clinical and more detached from what's really happening. So like, we still don't want to think about the bad things that happen to children. So yeah, I think that is like, it should have been played up more. I think like there should have been more of an element of like the kids discussing like why the parents don't think about it. I think it gets dismissed almost immediately with why don't the parents think about this. And I think Bill says like, because they don't believe in it anymore. And it's like, well, if that's the solution, then you guys should just stop believing in it. The end. Like, end of the movie.
Done.
Like, if you know the solution is to not believe in it, then don't believe in it and it's over.
It's the Freddy Krueger solution.
Yeah.
Take back your power.
Yeah, and I think it's not like put out there. I think in the book this is more explored. I can't remember again. It's been a while. But the idea that the kids are doing this not because, like, yes, the solution would be to just stop believing, but then other kids would still get killed by it. So I think the kids are making a conscious effort to be like, we're going to destroy this because the adults aren't going to do anything about it. Again, though, those aren't, like, we get everything put in explicit terms except that. Like, why don't, instead of like a line where somebody's like, this is Richie, he's a bit of a handful, just be like, so let's skip that line and just have a line where we're like, the adults don't believe, but kids are still getting killed. We can save them.
Right. Yeah. I know what you mean. I like those scenes too where we do see that the adults are just completely out of touch with everything, even the ones that are very, very, very overt, like when all the blood shoots out of the sink and the dad comes in and it's like he doesn't even see the blood.
Yeah. There's a lot of scenes like that where the adults aren't seeing the thing that's right in front of them, which, again, this is all about childhood. It's all about puberty. It's about that feeling of like, adults don't get me. I'm growing up. I'm growing into an adult. I'm leaving behind childhood, but I'm in between. That's what they are. They're this in between. Like, they're not fully children. They're dealing with real adult situations, but also the adults aren't there for them, so they're kind of left to their own device, which is the premise of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And it's a great premise.
I like, too, though, that you see that it's not just the supernatural stuff that the adults turn a blind eye to, because, like, there's a scene later on where the two bully kids are, like, fucking with the girl.
Yeah, it seems like an attempted rape.
Yeah. And the neighbor guy, who's like an older adult who totally could have managed the situation,
he just like, walks back in his house.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I like that they show that it's not just the crazy supernatural stuff that the adults can't see. It's not like, magical Santa Claus stuff that they can't witness anymore because they're old. It's like, no, they're literally turning a blind eye to like horrible stuff that they know is happening in their town. And I think too that like shame is um, a huge message throughout the movie in a lot of ways too. I mean,
Uh-huh.
obviously, obviously the town hiding its shame, but also too, I like that a lot of the things that it does to fuck with the adults psychologically is the same shit that perturbed them as kids. Like calling John Ritter's character, fat and calling him a little pig and stuff like this, or
Uh-huh.
making fun of the limo service guy as being effeminate and gay and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
he keeps bringing up the stuff that they were ashamed of when they were kids to torment them psychologically as adults. I think that that's a really really cool and a really powerful thing that's explored in the movie is that you carry those childhood shames with you no matter how old you get. They'll still affect you.
Yeah, if you don't address it. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what yeah, it's kind of what happens. Like the kids beat it, but they don't go the full length to make sure it's dead. So it comes back up in their adulthood, and they have to address it. They have to overcome it. They have to finally face that fear and just see it destroyed.
Yeah, and I like that message. I think that
Yeah,
that's
it's
really
good.
cool. I didn't expect to see that in here. I thought it was just literally about a evil clown or something.
Well, that's what this movie is uh, I I don't know if anyone's ever defined this as a subgenre of horror, but boogeyman horror,
Hmm.
where what we know about the boogeyman, if you watch this and or read the book and really get into it, if you look at J.K. Rowling's treatment of the boggart and like what that is and how it, you have to learn to face your deepest fear. Like the boogeyman is this malleable thing. It changes between movies, it changes between books, etc. But it represents the fear that is within us that we can't express fully. We can only, and I think when we were talking about our childhood fears, like the fear was the same, I'm sure, between you and me. We're feeling the same type of fear. We're just picking something to be the focal point of that fear.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what happens in this. Like, it appears differently to the different kids. It's a werewolf to Seth Green. It's a sink full of blood to Bev. Like, it has a different expression for each child, but then finally when they get down to the root of what it is, it's this actual like eldritch abomination, this Lovecraftian entity that it feeds off of their fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, if we take what Stephen King is really getting at here, is that we all have fear in us. We're all afraid. We find new ways to express it. Maybe for some it's grabbing tiki torches and hating other races.
God
But
damn it.
Yeah, but what they're expressing is fear. What
Yeah.
they're expressing is fear, and that it's not until we realize we come to the full understanding of what it is we fear, and that is death, that we realize that the things that we say we fear, the things that we're constantly attaching our fear to, are not the things we're afraid of. We're afraid of death. We're afraid of we're no longer a child. You've grown up, and all that's left for you is to die. Like,
Yeah.
there's no new, no transition beyond that. You're adult until you die.
Right. Yeah, and everything else is just sort of an expression of that. Yeah, it's like you're afraid of the end result, but you attach it to the thing that brings the end result.
Yeah, and one of the things that it does is it exploits the dead child. So like as children, they're afraid to be dead children, but what it shows them, what it is constantly expressing through say the voice of Georgie and stuff, is we all float down here. Like, come down here, die as a child, all you will have had is fun. You will have never had to confront death as an entity. You will just be dead.
Mm-hmm.
And you can float with us. We can be, easy breezy, never having had to deal with adulthood.
Well, and I'll tell you too, like the many forms of it throughout the movie is something that kind of surprised me too, because again, having only known of this movie, I thought that all that there was, the clown character, but whenever we see the other things, like the skeleton kind of creature that rises up out of the lake, and then the weird kind of ghoulish, again, kind of skeleton zombie thing that's in the mansion, and the other forms that it takes, I thought that was really pretty cool. I did not expect to see that, and it kind of did weird me out pretty well. And again, like, dude, to see this on a network TV show at that time period,
yeah, it's bold.
It's fucking gruesome, dude.
Yeah. That I mean, honestly, if I did a little research, because I remembered that there used to be a lot more horror miniseries on TV, and a lot of them were based off Stephen King work, like Salem's Lot, which is a great vampire movie.
That's true. Yeah, that was.
It was a miniseries. Tons of ABC miniseries, including Rose Red or Red Rose or whatever.
Rose Red.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of them, and just thinking back on them from childhood, I remember thinking, like, this is interesting that this is on, like, the same channel that I'm watching TGIF on. I can also see Salem's Lot, or some horrific sort of brighter. They were always a bit bright and a bit more like a TV show, but they're still dark.
Well, either way, stories that feature dead children.
Yeah, that's fucking dark. So, like,
and you can kind of expect to get away with that now, in the time period where, like, whole families watch Walking Dead and stuff together. But it's like, dude, this is like 30 years ago.
It was like 30 years ago. That's insane.
Yeah, so I thought that the content of the movie was a lot darker, and a lot more, like, kind of shocking and weird and disturbing. I really like the scene where, like, it's the bully kid that, like, ends up in the crazy house.
Henry, yeah.
And he's talking to it, which is, like, through the moon. Like, Pennywise is like the moon, and it's, like, talking to him and telling him to, like, kill the guard and all this crazy shit.
And then he appears as Belch.
Yeah,
Dead
dude.
Belch. We have to talk, because the baddies in this are seemingly based off of real life serial killers. Obviously, Pennywise the Clown would be a reference to John Wayne Gacy.
Sure.
But then we have characters like Henry, who seems very much to me like Henry Lee Lucas, actual serial killer, and the horror movie Henry is based off of Henry Lee Lucas.
Oh.
There is a character who's not in the miniseries but is in the book, named Patrick Hockstetter, who's going to be in the newer version of the movie, who is an obvious reference to Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh shit.
He kills animals, he keeps them dead. They're like animal corpses in a refrigerator in his backyard. There's a scene in the book where Patrick Hockstetter starts jerking off Henry and then tries to give him a blowjob, which, again, is very much Dahmer-esque.
Yowza.
So, like, Stephen King was showing us that like, serial killer teenager, like, what is the teenager who becomes a serial killer like? And Henry in this adaptation is just constantly telling everyone he's going to kill them. Like,
he's a little aggressive.
He's very aggressive. He carries a switchblade, which, as we know, means scum. Like,
yeah, exactly.
He's
classic.
a dirtbag.
Yeah.
So Henry, to me, he makes sense, but what doesn't make sense to me is that the adults don't seem to really see it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe I do get that people like Henry Lee Lucas and Jeffrey Dahmer slipped through the cracks, but Henry Lee Lucas was he was more overt. It seemed more clear that he was a serial killer. Jeffrey Dahmer was just weird and an alcoholic in high school, but not necessarily like, oh, he's gonna kill somebody. But Henry in this, like, there's no way that the adults don't think like, oh, that kid's gonna kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like, he's constantly saying he's going to.
Well, that kind of goes back to the adults just turning a blind eye about all of it too, though. I think that it's very possible that fits into the hiding the shame sort of narrative through the whole thing.
Do you think then that, like, it not only haunts some of the kids, but also influences others? Like is, because Henry is eventually, like, he's charged with all these murders and then put in an insane asylum. Like, was the inspiration for his desire to kill, was it speaking in his ear, getting him to, like, you know, attack these kids?
Right, or was it there already?
Yeah.
I'm
interested.
That's a good question. That's one of those things I would like to know more about. That might be in the book. I'm not sure, but so on the subject of it too, as far as the creature itself, like the origins of Pennywise are not even really remotely explained in the movie. As far as they're just like, oh, you know, every 30 something years or whatever, you know, something bad happens, and here's this clown appearing through all kinds of various documents and photographs and stuff throughout this town's history. But it's not really explicitly explained where he comes from, and I'm okay with that. I mean, like we've mentioned in other episodes, I'm very okay with a little ambiguity in a storyline, especially where a villain is concerned. So I don't really need a whole lot of backstory, but I did think the stuff where they were looking through, like, old documents from the town, and there's, like, a drawing of this spooky clown. I thought that was pretty corny.
Yeah. I like the scene where they're all looking at the picture book, and then Pennywise, you know, starts talking to them. I think that's cool. But yeah, there's some corniness. I think, though, like, from what I remember of the book, like, there is much more in depth about, you know, what this is. I mean, it's never fully defined, but it's like, you know, about what this is and what's going on. I think not defining it can really work, and I imagine they'll probably not go too far into it in the new adaptation, because again, there's just it's distracting. It can get distracting from the central story of what's going on with these kids and then what's going on with them as adults.
I think so too.
But yeah, I like the ambiguity about what's going on, and we don't know entirely. I think if they had done what I think would have been best, where they do kids for the first part, adults for the second part could have gone more into what was actually going on, instead of having like we get two versions for each of them of their backstory. We get their kid backstory, then we get their adult backstory, when we don't need that. All we need is the kid backstory plus story, and then see them as adults and give us, you know, an idea of where they're at, and then move forward. We don't need more backstory at this point.
Right.
What we need now is for them to really investigate what was going on, to really dig in. But that's not how they do it. The second part is clearly the weaker part.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't add anything, I don't think. It's an hour and a half conclusion of the first part. Like, instead of them adding something, instead of them making it a good standalone part, they just it's constantly concluding. It's constantly like, there's no new thing happening except that Bill's girlfriend from England shows up and gets kidnapped by Pennywise.
Yeah.
Who now apparently kidnaps people. I don't understand that.
Yeah, that doesn't really match his motive, does it?
Yeah, and also because Bill doesn't know that happened at all, there's no real driving force. Like, they all come back to the town to defeat this thing because of a promise they made to each other as kids, but they don't even remember it. Like, for some reason, growing up made them completely forget what happened.
Yeah, well, it's because they've, like, hidden their shame. Yeah,
and again, that could be a good story. if we didn't see that progressing from the beginning, if they weren't intercutting past and future together, we could have got the development of them not remembering everything and things coming back to them slowly, instead of what we did get, which is them suddenly being reminded by Mike, and then, you know, at the bar or whatever it is, they all sort of just instantly remember it, and that's it. There's no development on the why did they forget, what made them forget.
That's true. That'll be interesting too to see, I think, in the remake, is like how they make the grown-up storyline interesting.
So I really, like, honestly, there's not much more to say about this.
Yeah.
The one thing that I already sort of addressed but want to really just fucking make clear is that Richie and his comedy is fucking terrible.
It's not good.
And it's a real good representation of what happens when someone who doesn't fully know comedy tries to write comedy.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good way of saying it.
Like, if you look at what adult Richie is saying on his set on that night talk show, it's just he's basically just slapping words together. Like, there's no humor to it. He's talking about how much power the power company has, and then Nancy Reagan, and then also Godzilla. Oh, and here are my obviously terribly racist, even in 1990, Asian eyeglasses.
Oh.
Like what? First off, what is the joke? What is his joke? I don't get any of it. It's not a joke. All you're doing is saying words fast.
Yeah.
Now I do know in the 80s and 90s, because of that stand-up boom, that a lot of bad stand-up came out of it. But like, we're to understand that he's popular. Like, that he's good at it. He has a Beverly Hills mansion.
Yeah. And clearly he has fans.
Yeah, he's our expression of what a good comic is. It's fucking terrible.
Well, you know, before we kind of give our final thoughts, let me just ask you about one really critical make or break element of this movie. I've just got to ask you about, what do you think about the ending and the whole spider thing?
I like that it was a spider. It's not even a spider. It's like a spider-like creature.
Yeah, it's like a weird crab alien thing.
I like that, kind of, because I like that it makes everything still mysterious. Like, everything's still like, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Like, but I think, have you read anything about how the book really deals with the ending?
No.
All right, Ben. Well, let me reveal something to you that's hopefully gonna make you uncomfortable. In the book, basically, because everything's sort of wrapped all together, the ending, the kind of denouement, the falling action of this is that 11-year-old Bev tells the boys that they all have to have sex with her.
Okay, I remember reading that somewhere. That, they've all had sex together or something.
So yeah, but at 11, she has sex with 6 11-year-old boys. It's real uncomfortable too, because Scotty doesn't want to.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is an 11-year-old girl raping an 11-year-old boy.
Not good.
Yeah, and this is supposed, and like, I looked this up. I won't defend it. I don't think there's a defense of it. I don't think it's good. I think it's stupid. I don't think it makes any sense. But a lot of people defend it like, well, it's symbolic of them, like, you know, making a pact to, you know, always remember what happened in this part of their childhood, and it symbolizes them growing into adults. No, it doesn't. It's 6 11-year-old boys having sex with an 11-year-old girl, and some of them not wanting to do it, and then still being coerced into doing it.
Yeah,
it's sick. Cool. It's gross. It's not cool. It doesn't play out well. I mean, like, as I talked about earlier, the Patrick Hockstetter thing, where he like starts giving Henry a hand job and then tries to give him a blow job, and then Henry, like, you know, violently reacts against it. that's fine. That's right with me. Like, with me, that makes sense. These are two psychopaths. These are, and you know, Patrick is gay. He's a gay character, but he also doesn't have empathy. He's a psychopath, so he'll just go for it. That scene makes sense to me. But a scene where 6 11-year-old boys have sex with an 11-year-old girl in a sewer, it's just disgusting. It's disgusting. Ugh. It's real gross, and no matter like how you try to explain that symbolism, it doesn't work for me.
So how does that wrap into the ending with the big alien thing?
So yeah, with the big alien thing, now that's the ending. The ending is they kill it. I can see why Stephen King wanted a different ending. I can see why he wanted to wrap it up with like a flashback to the kids and maybe having like some good symbolic ending, because this doesn't have that. It's not like the ending is just they beat the spider thing, and I mean, it's comical when they're all just like kicking it and stuff. Like,
yeah, and then like it gets like weirdly savage when they start like ripping its organs out and shit.
Yeah, it does. It gets weird.
Yeah.
It's cool. But it's not satisfying in the end, especially because they then tack on the part about Bill's wife being in a coma and then him riding with her on the bike to revive her.
Yeah, that was totally tacked on. Although, like, man, that whole part... It did
happen in the book.
That whole part, man, where he puts her on the bike and he's like racing her down the street to like try to wake her up. I was on the edge of my seat hoping that they just like ran out in front of a bus and got hit, and I would have been like, this was worth watching this entire thing. It would have been the
much better ending. Yeah, that is a much better ending.
The whole spider thing really took me out of it. I was really on board with a lot of the movie. I thought that the pacing towards the end was really nice and stuff too. I was totally on it, but when this like Ray Harryhausen like stop motion, you know, armature crab spider thing shows up, it really did take me out of it. Like, I think it would have played a lot better given their technology and special effects they had access to back then. It really would have played a lot better if they just had to fight Pennywise, you know, and maybe he had, I don't know, super strength or whatever, and he could put up a good fight against him. I just think that would have played much better than this random arachnid thing, which we have no emotional connection to as a viewer whatsoever. It's just so random.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand that, like, you know, what we're seeing as Pennywise the clown is like, that's just a projection of itself to make itself into something that the kids can relate to or be scared of or be lured into or whatever. I understand that it wasn't literally a clown that they were fighting. Mm-hmm. We saw him change shapes numerous times throughout the movie and even do weird morphic stuff, like when he like morphed out of that pipe in the shower floor and stuff, which I thought was
scene.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I understand that, you know, he wasn't literally a clown the whole time, so they could have been fighting anything at the very end. But yeah, the big arachnid thing really did not work for me. It really took the wind out of my sails quite a bit whenever it got there.
Yeah, I think maybe if we had seen it earlier, if we had seen it in the first part, like when they had gone there, like down into the sewer, if there had been a bunch of like spider webs and stuff, and then like we see Pennywise, but then it turns into that spider and that's what they defeat, and then later that they come back to it, then it's like, well, yeah, in the first part that would have been a bit jolting, but it also would have then, we could have explored it. We could have made it make more sense.
Yeah, this is just like you changed villains at the end, because the thing is the big crab thing, it isn't even verbal. Like, it doesn't even talk. It's just like, it is just some random beast that you have no connection to as a viewer.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think I did like it because I again, they just don't go into the Lovecraftian element in this that really made it, I think, good for me when I read it as a middle schooler, where it was just like, there's this entity from an extra dimensional being that can shapeshift and things, but it has this like alien form to it.
Yeah.
that's all real cool. But yeah, when you think of it in relation to what happens in the miniseries, it just comes out of nowhere. And you don't even know to hate it. Like, you look at it and it's like, well, I'm like, this might be a good guy. We didn't see Pennywise turn into it.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah. That would have been awesome. Is like, if he was like, no, I'm the defender from the other galaxy, come to help you defeat it. Oh, no.
Not silver, my only weakness.
Yeah. All that was pretty corny, too, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, belief. Like, I get that. And this is exactly what I think is going on in Stephen King's head, is that he's seeing the challenges of why it is that this creature is doing what it's doing, and etc. And so he falls back on belief. He falls back on belief so that it's like, well, I don't have to explain it. It's all about belief.
Yeah.
Like, if you believe in it, it exists and it can hurt you. But you can also believe enough to hurt it back. Like, he just falls back on that, and there's not a lot to get from that. Belief is, the more you explore belief, the emptier it really is. Like, we need belief, I guess, in some ways. Like, we have to believe that when we step forward, we're not going to fall off the earth. Like, all of those things we have, like, in our mind, there's proof of it, but like, you still have to like take the plunge. You still have to believe in certain things, but it is empty. There's nothing to it. And so to hinge your entire 1,200 page book on belief, it then ends up ringing pretty hollow and doesn't have as much impact as it could.
I think so, man. I think so. Well, overall, what are your final thoughts about this, and what do you give this flick here on a scale of a 1 to a 10?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to divorce it from what I know about the book, because I do like the book, and I think people should read it. You know, you'll like it. It's not good. It's not a good movie. It's not well acted. It's not well written. It's not well directed. It's not good. There are elements that I like. Those are elements that just come from the book. I like them because I know more about them. There's certainly Tim Curry, who's great in it. He makes the movie. Every scene with Tim Curry, I would give a high rating. But every other scene and the entire story itself is bad. It's not good. I think the dialogue is so terribly stilted and it makes no sense most of the time. It really is just exposition, and you don't need it. I'm gonna go ahead and say, if you have the choice, when you're thinking of watching a movie about killer clowns, I say Killer Clowns from Outer Space is better than this.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Go with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and maybe this new adaptation will be good. Maybe, that's the way to go. But I gave Killer Clowns from Outer Space a 4, so this isn't much worse. I'm gonna say this is a 3.5 out of 10.
Wow, 3.5 out of 10. That's definitely low. It was to me, this was so much better than my expectations of it, because again, I was just thinking this is gonna be some shitty TV series, so I expected it to be, just an absolute pile of shit. So whenever we started it, and I was like, wow, this is actually kind of gruesome. He's like killing kids, and they're talking about it, and there's some cool scenes in there, like with the head in the refrigerator, and I like the Chinese restaurant scene where there's all the weird shit in the fortune cookies in front of him.
Oh yeah, the eye and stuff. That was cool.
And the little like weird dead like bird, like fetal bird thing is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There were some really cool moments in there that I didn't expect, and some iconic visuals that I wasn't really anticipating either. I like that scene where like the one kid whose father was like in the military, he's like out there waving out in front of the septic treatment place, and he's like, I live here now.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was fucking weird, man. It was kind of David Lynchy, which I was not expecting. I thought there was a lot of things in here that really did surprise me in terms of how dark and how gruesome a lot of them were. I do like a lot of the elements in the story about like I said, hiding shame and the town hiding the abuse of these kids and stuff like that, and just acting like it's not going on. I think that's a pretty powerful message to hinge a horror story on. Um, some questionable acting, some way more questionable dialogue. There's a lot of those things that I can just see, Stephen King getting really excited to include line for line some things that were in the book that just do not fly when they're on the screen,
Yeah, my favorite instance of that, just real quick, is when Ben and Bill meet, and Bill says, "You're Ben," and Ben says, "Yeah, and you're Bill."
Nailed it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's definitely some questionable stuff, and like I said, there's a lot of moments in the movie where I'll be totally knee deep in this thing, and it's really got me, and then just something stupid happens. Like I said, that scene where the kid goes in the old dilapidated mansion, and the crazy skeletons coming down the stairs, I thought that was badass, and then he starts doing that. Yeah, it was. And then he starts doing the Scouts Pledge thing, and it really just pulled me right out of the movie. Same with the ending with the big crab. Again, Ray Harryhausen, like fucking Clash of the Titans creature at the end. I thought that really, really did just pull me out of the movie. So it's definitely got its problems. To me, on first watching, again, given my very low expectations for it and stuff, I think I would probably rock it about like probably like a 6 out of 10. Just because it was so much better than I was expecting, and I really did like Tim Curry in it. He just crushed it.
Yeah,
but it's the kind of thing that knowing where my expectation is about it now, probably if I went back and watched it again, I wonder how I would feel about it. So this is one of those ones that maybe as the Halloween season approaches, maybe I'll watch it again some night, and I'll report back on a later episode and been like, yeah, it's really more like a 3. But as of now, I think I'm gonna go.
Maybe
with
it'll be a 10.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it's like, maybe it'll be better than what I remembered or something. So
yeah.
But as of now, I'm gonna go with about a 6 on that one. So I guess I must have liked it quite a lot more than you.
You did. But again, I don't know how much I am divorcing it from my knowledge of the book and whatnot. And also, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is obviously based off of it, because it is from outer space and appears as a killer clown. But it's more fun. I did say, though, when we watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space, that it would be so much better if our protagonists were kids. Yeah. So, like, it's like, it is almost that fun Killer Clowns from Outer Space that I want, but it's not. Like, they needed to add fun to it or make it more serious. Like, you can't have this namby-pamby in between where the kids are always having fun and then something dark as shit happens and the two never sort of merge.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you. Well, on our next episode of Dead and Lovely, we're going to be covering ourselves a good old flick. What are we going to watch next week, Steve?
We're going to watch Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 2.
Part 2. I'm so excited about it because I like this movie. And the first time that I watched it, I was just really confused about it. But other subsequent watches have revealed to me it's actually one of my favorites in the series. So I really look forward to talking about that. There's a lot of, I don't even want to call it subtext because it's not subtext. It is on Front Street. It's just text, I guess.
Yeah. Nightmare on Front Street.
Yeah, exactly. So I look forward to covering that with you. Well, in the meantime, I would really appreciate it if you Dead and Lovely listeners would go on iTunes and write us a short review with a good writing. That would really help us out a ton, help us show up in those feeds and search engines and stuff like that a whole lot better. So please do go on iTunes and rate this podcast. Even if it's just a short little thing, just be sure to keep it G-rated. Otherwise, they will not post it and it doesn't count. So please go in there and write us a short review.
By G-rated, we don't mean Warren G-rated, all right? Okay?
Regulate. Maybe just write us a review that just says Ben and Steve regulate.
Yeah, or if it just says regulators, mount up.
That's fine. That'd be totally fine.
As long as it's a 5-star review. If you give us a 1-star review that says that, fuck you.
Yeah, come on. How dare you desecrate the great words of Warren G like that?
They can also find us, obviously, listeners. You can find us on Instagram. I'm on there like it ain't no thing. Twitter, it is a thing, but I'll tweet sometimes. And you can find us at Dead Lovely Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. We also have a Facebook group, Dead and Lovely Facebook group. We can be emailed at deadandlovelypod@gmail.com. And you can find me at Steven Spratling on Instagram, Twitter, wherever.
You guys can find me at Ben Eller Guitars on Instagram and the Twitter. And you guys can also find my YouTube guitar lesson page on youtube.com/Ben Eller Guitars. In the meantime, we will be catching up with you guys next week, talking about all Freddy Krueger again. If you guys want to get prepped up for that one, be sure to listen to our original Nightmare on Elm Street episode that we put up a couple weeks ago. So we will catch you guys then. Thank you guys again so much for listening. You guys have been absolutely delightful, and we've been dead and lovely.
We all float down here.
Bye, y'all.